because it bothers the vice president of content at the Bakersfield Californian, Louis Amistoy. He's the guy who has brought a lot of technology to the Californian, and right now he's digging into some technology on his cell phone there. Louis, good morning. Welcome to the Renegade Report. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good. We had an interesting season of Renegade football. You guys captured a ton of video, and I don't know if people realize just how much Renegade football is available on YouTube at Bakersfield.
All 10 games.
Yep, all 10 games and highlights.
Highlights from all 10 games.
Right.
There's roughly, I could call it up, there's probably 600 videos from the Renegades on the BC Renegade Report YouTube channel.
Right, and for a season that was very challenging for the Renegades, and you're a guy who's followed junior college football for a long time.
Yeah.
You have a good appreciation for it here in Southern California. How historic was the Renegades' 2-8 season? I mean, Bakersfield is known in the Southland,
right,
in the North, everywhere as being a dominant team.
Well, it was one of those. There was so many kind of interesting cliches about this season. If you look at it, that this is the best 2-8 football team you'll ever see.
Oh,
but it was true. I mean, I think if you were to ask any coach that dealt with Bakersfield, especially Ventura at the end, who they didn't shake hands or anything, playing Bakersfield was not easy, and that was even though they were 2-6 coming in, or 2-7 coming into that game. That was a game that Ventura could have easily lost. If you look at the games that Bakersfield should have won, they should have won against
Hancock.
They should have won against Citrus. They should have
Canyons.
They had Canyons at times. This was a team that could have barely
won 6 games,
5 or 6 games by as a good measure. They lost games. They got beat by some really good teams this year too. I think Golden West was the best team I saw them lose to this season, athletically at least.
And they were without the best quarterback. They had Chris Dentremont last season, who threw all kinds of touchdown passes and completions, and threw for all kinds of yards. He didn't play for him this year.
Yeah, right.
I guess he is going to be back next year, though, is what I heard. He's taking the season off. So
I'm kind of, I think the one thing that stood out for me this year, and to be perfectly honest with you, Francis, was that they didn't have the sort of separation threat that they had the year before. They didn't have Derek Vickers.
Let's just say it.
Yeah, we didn't have Vickers in the lineup, and Vickers you had to pay attention to because he could run out of the backfield. He could catch the passes. I mean, he had a dominating performance against Moore Park. And Tarek Gagey had probably his best game of his career in that particular game. So they didn't have that, and then they had so many injuries up front. They had so many injuries. You had a guy that, you had some of these receivers that were sort of feeling their way through the season, and all of a sudden they would get hurt. And I'm just thinking of several guys who were there, and they couldn't protect the quarterback at times. So,
no, yeah, but you're right.
Yeah.
David Ross was our best downfield threat, and the guy battled injuries from the get-go. I mean, he was the presumptive number 1 receiver in camp, and then he gets hurt, and he doesn't start the season, and then he comes back. Faison Knight, a guy from out of town that was supposed to do a lot of things, he dealt with some injuries. Jazz Thin, the Frontier product, that's a guy who...
Here's Jazz Thin, right? He makes a catch in his first game.
A great catch, by the way,
dramatic catch, and gets hurt on that play. A big target, a big receiver. I'd love to see if he's going to stick it out and continue to play, because athletically he's one of those guys that can do some things for BC.
Big body, the way his distribution is.
Yeah.
He's got
he's one of those.
reach.
Yeah, he's one of those kids who was relatively slender in high school, but you put him in college and he puts a little weight on, and all of a sudden now he's like one of those sort of hybrid receiver tight end type guys. So I think that it's going to be fun to see what happens with BC next year. The thing that's interesting about football is that, and I've talked about this a little bit with you separately, is football has changed so much. It's cyclical and it's sort of schemes. Remember back in the day when the wishbone was
the wishbone was the deal.
Let's run the option, and
then it was the wing tee, and then it was the red gun, and then the spread, and there are trends, and sometimes they start in college and trickle upwards to the NFL. Sometimes they start in the NFL and trickle downward.
But now you're starting to see this move toward analytics again, and baseball's already moved in this direction about how to manage things. And I'm in that business too, where we're also dealing with that. What works for our audience, what works for folks, and people
are
paying
what gives
attention.
You the most bang for the buck?
Yeah, what gives you what works for you the best? Okay, and if you look what's going on in the high school rank, especially in the Southern California basin, and you see the teams like Riverside, you see Golden West, you see these teams that are running sort of a modified, spread offense now. Carl Dean and these other guys could probably do a much better job of describing what I'm seeing, but it's up tempo. It's Baylor. It's Oregon.
And just to give folks an example of what Lewis is talking about, in Oregon, they actually had a guy that there's different names for him, ball boy, penny back, but he's the individual who was responsible for delivering the ball to the referee so that it can be spotted and then moved up the field, right? Well, the Oregon offense was limited by how fast that gentleman was. So they went to the track team. And they found themselves a guy who was a 400, 800 runner, and he was part of the reason they could keep running to the line of scrimmage. And, and then they spread out 4 wide. You have two slot receivers and, maybe sometimes no one in the backfield and all these short, high percentage passes. If you look at the passing tree in the NFL, those passes that are 5 to 7 yards, those West Coast style little dinks and outs, those are very high percentage.
I just watched a great video. We talked about this deal yesterday on a high school football coach in Arkansas who doesn't believe in punting, and he actually has analytics to prove why punting doesn't work. Field position is sort of overrated, and that he's sort of willing to give up points because he has numbers on his side. He doesn't ever kickoff. He doesn't onside kicks every time because the percentages are in his favor that he'll get a turnover, create a turnover. It's that sort of innovative thinking that is fundamentally changing the way people look at football.
And like you said, it's sports across the board.
Right. The other thing too that he was doing was he was. I mean, some people look at this as gimmicky, and he's like, no. I'm exploiting how the game is taught and how the game is coached. And one of his things was, I want to move the ball like rugby. So if I throw to a receiver, chances are a safety or a linebacker will come over to help with that tackle. Well, suddenly now that creates space and numbers for my receiver. So that receiver who catches that ball is going to have a trailing receiver, and they're going to pitch it to him, and suddenly, boom, there you go. And it's
like
worked.
A downfield option.
Yeah, it's like a downfield option, and it's worked for them in this. And this is a pretty powerful program where they routinely go to the Arkansas State Finals. So those kind of things are happening. If you look at what happened in Division I in the Southern section, you look at the teams that were in the Pac-5 division where do those kids end up at? They end up at Golden West. They end up at Long Beach. They end up at Riverside. If they don't go to Division I or elsewhere, they're running high octane up tempo offenses, and so I think that's really what's going to be changing in the future here. And how does Bakersfield fit into that? Which feels a little bit more traditional. Is tradition the sort of the outlier that breaks the mold or makes it difficult to coach against? I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think that you bring up an excellent point about the changing schemes, because the other thing that happens when you have these changes in schemes from like the veer or the wing tee or the spread that we're talking about is the type of athletes that you need to run that offense. I think it does change a little bit, and it might make more regions better suited to running it than others. And how well we can adapt to that, I'm not sure. It's a good question. I know on the 46 defense, you want to have guys up front who can kind of drop back into pass coverage, these hybrid big, fast guys. And what we saw when we played Long Beach, and one big difference between what Bakersfield does and the type of athletes we have versus the type of athletes they have. And I overheard a coach say, what we do is overrated. It's not X's and O's. It's Jimmys and Joes.
Yeah.
And we saw some big Jimmys and Joes when we were on the road.
Yeah, we did.
We were vastly outsized on the line. And it makes you wonder that all those high schools you talked about that feed Golden West and those schools down there, do they have a bigger variety of bodies to choose from, especially when it comes to big guys that can move?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a premium at every level.
And they honestly they do a better job, in Long Beach or Huntington Beach. Ventura had a lot of guys from out of state. They're going to attract a certain number of people who are going to be from out of state, and you're always going to deal with that, which which sort of puts Bakersfield in sort of a, Bakersfield's a big college, right? And it has big facilities and has big time aspirations. It's been a great program historically.
Great academics.
Yeah. But, we made this conversation the other day. Where does Bakersfield, you're not going to attract the big time out of state bounce back kids that some of these other schools. You're not the beach,
Well, and Lewis, you and I experienced that. Lewis and I took a road trip this year to the last game of the season, the Ventura game, which was interesting for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it was really interesting, especially when we went to In-N-Out.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Go ahead.
It's all right. No, it's another story. It's one of those mysteries. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. But on the way to this Ventura game, Lewis and I are looking around. I mean, there's like avocado fields, orchards, and then boom, you pop out in Ventura.
You're near the beach.
You are at the beach, and it is gorgeous.
Right. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And, and Ventura's campus, has, there's some, that was actually my first time to Ventura's campus. I was really impressed with the facilities.
They have some new buildings. It is obvious they have some funding there. The architecture, quite frankly, is very modern.
Yep. We can see I didn't realize you can see the ocean from the press box. I mean, it's not quite as stunning as Santa Barbara City College as far as the setting goes, but it was pretty nice.
But I would say that it's close.
Yeah.
And, they had an elevator. They had actually the entire, I think that as far as a structure goes, obviously, it gets no better than Memorial Stadium. That is one of the greatest stadiums on earth, from the palm trees to the view of the entire Metro Bakersfield area. It's one of the highest points in town. When we're on top of the press box, this is a beautiful place.
Mount Memorial, is what I like to call it.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, it's a hike to get up there. But back to Ventura, they had the whole back of their stadium, the underside of the steel bleachers, wrapped in like that vinyl material
with the posters of the kids, and it was really neat.
Oh.
It was really nice facility, and my hats off to Ventura and
artificial turf.
Yeah, I was impressed with all the facilities we went to. We went to Ventura, we went to Canyons, which is a great facility. It has some electrical issues I like to talk about, and some internet connectivity issues I like to connect.
And the roof nearly killed me.
Yeah,
Go on.
Roof. Yeah, there was that. There's another story.
Okay,
for another
so
time.
Lewis was unhappy because I'm very fair skinned. Okay, and I'm one of those people
to be safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And come to find out, our guests, or excuse me, our hosts at Canyons had no shade and decided to position the press box about 4 inches underneath the sun. And I started feeling kind of woozy. I was not feeling great, and I was live tweeting and, trying to help Lewis. We had some crazy connectivity issues. Part of that broadcast, by the way, went through this phone. We were going nuts up there. And by the way, few people will ever know the hell that this man slogs through to bring Renegade football to the masses, to the world, really. We have people all over the world watching Renegade football on Saturdays. But Lewis has like a Swiss Army knife in his head that he uses to keep these broadcasts up and going. And he's like one of those one-man bands where the guy has that bass drum up here and the accordions and everything. That's Lewis during our broadcasts. And that game was nuts. But anyway, I was getting hot. So I used a table that looked like it was found on the island in Gilligan's Island and some other detritus and junk to make a sun shelter. And Lewis did not believe, because I was required to sort of get into a commando crawl to take advantage of the shade, that this was really a setup becoming of a man of my stature.
And I think we had a very nice conversation about that afterwards.
We really did.
Yes.
That was a rare father-son moment for you and I.
Dr. Mayer?
Yes.
Dr. Amestoy. It was good. It was solid. That's the thing though I love about BC football is a lot of work, but ultimately, you know what? You do it for a couple of reasons. One, it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
To go to the games.
Huge.
Community college football. If you just like football, right? Community college football is pretty good. And it's fun to go on the road trips because it's you and me and Vance Palm and Kirk Boyer and we do a great job, and we do some great production. I'm really proud of the work that we've done, and I'm really proud of the fact that the college, with Sandy Taylor and Dr. Christian and everybody, they've been so supportive of what we've been able to do there that I think it's only going to get better. So I'm looking forward to the next year.
I think you're absolutely right. And I had an opportunity to sit in on the California Community College Association Sports Information and Media Conference. And people really look to Bakersfield as being on the cutting edge of the broadcast because there's an independent contractor who travels around, really nice guys actually, SoCal Sports, but they don't follow any particular team. They just kind of go around and do a JUCO game of the week, and then they do some stuff in basketball, and they'll get a couple playoff games. But our coverage of Renegade Athletics in general, which also we should probably talk about, is huge, and it's really trend setting. And if you look at our broadcasts, we have chyrons, we have lower thirds, we have graphics, we have replay. You're not going to find that too many places at this level.
No, you're not. And we're looking to expand that. We're gonna do basketball on Friday or Saturday. I'm sorry,
Saturday, yeah,
doubleheader.
That's correct, yeah.
So
the Renegade women and men are squaring off against Canyons, and it's always good to put the boots on Canyons. Why? Because they act like they're better than us.
Well, we'll see. We'll see for sure.
We absolutely will. And the men's basketball team is absolutely thrilling. I'll be doing play-by-play. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's just one more way for you to catch Renegade Athletics and stay plugged in. And like Lewis said, there's something special about junior college athletics. You never know who's going to show up in one of these games. We had a D1 kickback last year who's been in the national news. That showed up and played Memorial Stadium. The Greg Olson's younger brother, Kevin Olson, who I think he's been kicked out of like 3 Division I programs.
Right.
He was a 5-star quarterback recruit,
Riverside guy, right?
Yeah. He went to the U and went to Miami.
Yep.
Couldn't follow the rules there. I think he went to Florida State. I think he tried to go to maybe Auburn. And now he has said he knows that he's at the end of the line.
Yeah.
That he has to climb back and make something happen at Riverside if he's going to continue his college career. We saw a running back that played for Allen Hancock who literally defied gravity. That guy jumped around like Marcus Allen.
Yeah, right.
There's just diamonds out there that you can catch.
In my career, I mean, I've had the opportunity to cover guys who've gone to the NFL. Most notably, Mike Anderson, who was a really interesting story. Played at Mount Sentinel College, was a Rookie of the Year in the NFL. Played for the Denver Broncos. He succeeded Terrell Davis at Denver, and really won a Super Bowl there. Played for the Baltimore Ravens. And so you will see. And it was interesting about him. I'll tell you this, Francis, that they didn't even realize they had him, how good he was, until like the second or third week of the season, his freshman year. Now, he was an older guy because he'd been in the Marine Corps, but those are the kind of stories you get, and that's what I love about community college athletics.
Yeah, and we have that at Bakersfield College. Just this year on the wrestling team, Tori Casper. By the way, the coda to this story, and actually John Farrand helped me produce a video about Tori that's available on the YouTube channel for Bakersfield College Athletics. He's a guy who was a good high school wrestler, but had some injury issues. He went to BC back in 2010, but wasn't ready to kind of dedicate himself to the really rigorous schedule that is being a student athlete. And then he had a child. So he worked in the oil fields for a few years. He came back this year, qualified for the state tournament, and now he's up at York College in Nebraska on scholarship.
All right.
So
it's great.
Yeah,
great
like
story.
Lewis said, these are the type of things that we see in JUCO athletics. You can catch all of these events on Bakersfield.com in HD. So be sure to watch this Saturday when the Renegades open home conference play against College of the Canyons. That's at 3 and 5 p.m. this Saturday, and I'll be running play-by-play. Coming up next, we got the guy that you need to give a chance. He's the academic advisor for Renegade Athletics and a bit of a inspirational, unofficial coach for some of our teams. His name is Stig Jantz. Don't go anywhere. Give Jantz a chance. The Renegade Report will be right back.